Welcome to Exam Sale. This short guide walks you through the Citrix NetScaler 12 Essentials and Traffic Management Syllabus so you know exactly what to study and how much weight each area carries. Overview of the exam structure and weights. Load balancing 12%, content switching 12%, basic networking 10%, rewrite responder and URL transformation 10%, high availability 8%, SSL offload 8%, security 8%, advanced policies 8%, getting started 7%, monitoring and troubleshooting 7%, Citrix ADC platforms 5%, and classic policies 5%. The exam mixes hands-on tasks, conceptual questions, and scenario-based assessments to test practical skills and understanding. Load balancing is 12% of the exam and focuses on configuration and management of load balancing entities and methods. Difficulty is medium, estimated learning time is 8 hours, and assessment is hands-on plus conceptual. You will learn to create services and virtual servers, select load balancing algorithms, configure persistence with cookies, define custom monitors, and apply traffic management for specific protocols while tuning thresholds, weights, and service groups. Content switching is 12% and tests logic and implementation of content-based request routing. Difficulty is medium, estimated learning time is 6 hours, and assessment is conceptual plus scenario-based. Expect to define content switching components, build policies based on HTTP headers, configure content switching virtual servers, set priority evaluation, link default load balancing virtual servers for non-matching traffic, and troubleshoot policy matching. Basic networking is 10% and covers Citrix ADC network architecture, IP addressing, and routing. Difficulty is medium, estimated learning time is 6 hours, and assessment is conceptual plus scenario-based. You will identify and configure NSIP, VIP, SNIP, and MIP, manage VLANs and interfaces, understand routing and switching modes, implement static and dynamic routing, use ACLs for filtering, and review link aggregation and PFE operation. Rewrite, responder, and URL transformation make up 10% and focus on app expert traffic manipulation of HTTP requests and responses. Difficulty is hard, estimated learning time is 8 hours, and assessment is hands-on plus conceptual. You will configure rewrite actions and responder policies for header changes and redirects. Implement URL transformation for masking paths and host names. Use pattern sets and data sets. Bind policies at correct points. And troubleshoot expression evaluation. High availability is 8% and ensures system resilience through node synchronization and failover. Difficulty is medium. Estimated learning time is 4 hours, and assessment is scenario-based. Learn HA node states and transitions. Configure heartbeats and synchronization. Manage RPC passwords and propagation settings. Perform manual failover and maintenance. And troubleshoot common HA synchronization issues across Layer 2 and Layer 3 setups. SSL offload is 8% and covers encryption, certificate management, and SSL termination. Difficulty is medium, estimated learning time is 5 hours, and assessment is hands-on plus conceptual. You will identify SSL termination versus SSL bridge, create and manage CSRs, install and bind certificates to virtual servers, configure ciphers and SSL parameters for compliance, implement SSL actions and policies, and understand PFS and Diffie, Hellman concepts and hardware versus software SSL processing. Security is 8% and centers on system access control and administrative security for Citrix ADC. Difficulty is medium, estimated learning time is 4 hours, and assessment is conceptual plus scenario-based. Topics include configuring system users, groups, and command policies, implementing external authentication such as LDAP and Radius, securing the management IP, applying management profiles and ACLs, restricting SSH and GUI access, and auditing administrative changes. Advanced policies account for 8% and involve developing complex logic using the default policy engine. Difficulty is hard, estimated learning time is 7 hours, and assessment is hands-on plus conceptual. You will learn advanced syntax structure, use HTTP request and response metadata in expressions, configure policies for app expert features, use text processing functions, create policy labels, apply Godot expressions, and use advanced expressions with rewrite and responder features. Getting started is 7% and covers initial setup, licensing, and management interfaces. Difficulty is easy, estimated learning time is 3 hours, and assessment is conceptual plus scenario-based. Expect to identify Citrix ADC additions and licensing models, perform initial configuration via CLI and GUI, manage system licenses and feature activation, understand the boot process and configuration files, and run basic health checks after installation. Monitoring and troubleshooting is 7% and focuses on diagnostic tools and logging for system health. Difficulty is hard, estimated learning time is 6 hours, and assessment is scenario-based. You will use the dashboard for real-time monitoring, configure and interpret syslog and nslog, run strace and scans for packet analysis, monitor CPU memory and throughput, troubleshoot virtual server and service states, and integrate SNMP for external monitoring and reporting. Citrix ADC platforms are 5% and explain hardware and software appliance variants. Difficulty is easy, estimated learning time is 2 hours, and assessment is conceptual plus scenario-based. Learn to distinguish MPX, SDX, VPX, and CPX. Understand SDX multi-tenancy and management service roles. Review hypervisor requirements and resource allocation for VPX, and identify CPX use cases in microservices and containerized environments. Classic policies are 5% and cover legacy policy engine and expression support. Difficulty is medium, estimated learning time is 3 hours, and assessment is conceptual plus scenario-based. You will identify classic syntax and bindings, learn which features still use classic policies, convert classic policies to advanced where applicable, recognize limitations of the legacy engine, and distinguish between request and response classic expressions. Close your study plan by focusing first on load balancing and content switching since they carry the highest weight. Then tackle the app expert and advanced policies areas that require hands-on practice. Review networking and SSL fundamentals. Practice HA and troubleshooting scenarios, and use the estimated learning hours to pace your preparation before attempting the exam.